Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, testing. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Try this as a mic position. Test, test, test. Oh, we had a viewer for a moment there. Alright. Okay. Right now, it seems as if literally no one is watching, so this will be recorded for the for posterity. If everybody could please catch this video up over the weekend, that would be fantastic. My intention is to get us caught up to the current place in the course by the end of this this recording. So, good. So I thought I'd start off today by giving you a quick overview of assignment 1. There we are. There's assignment 1 for you. Just because the due date for this is next Friday, given that we did have that delay, I'm not sure whether we require the extension or not, to be honest. After this, we should be all caught up. So, and all caught up a week in advance of the deadline. So I think that we'll be fine, actually, to make the deadline of Friday. But, yeah. There we go. Oh, we got a viewer. Hooray! I hope it's not a bot. Do-do-do-do-do-do. If you're not a bot, say so in the chat. Ha ha ha. So, assignment 1. Please note that all assignments must be submitted to both CS Unix and also to Canvas. Except for the file name differences noted below, your files in both submissions must be identical, or your work will be graded 0. This is the same regime that we were operating under for client side. So similarly to client side, all of your work must be uploaded to CS Unix in order for it to be graded. Further, your files must match. So there you have it. Please, so in general, if you mess up your CS Unix submission, you'll get a week to fix it, and after that week, the 0 will be permanent. So, the purpose of this assignment is to get back into programming. We are going to program with loops and conditional statements and math functions and a little bit of string manipulation, all of those types of things. You get some starter code from the link. I recommend using the download button there, but let's take a look at the starter code. This is an HTML file, which very basic form, right? 2 buttons. One which runs your solution to problem 1, and one which runs your solution to problem 2. And of course, at the moment, you know, there's nothing, it won't work in here. You'll have to download it yourself. So you'll want to download that HTML file, put that up on your XAMPP installation in your htdocs folder, and then the main bulk of this assignment, of course, will be writing some PHP scripts. Altering the front-end code is forbidden. So once you've got this code, don't modify it, please. If we download your solutions and put it with the starter code file, it must work without alteration. To help you understand whether this is During team programming, one of the first steps is to agree on an interface which allows the teams to work in parallel without frequent interactions. Neither team is permitted to alter the interface once created. So, if you're changing the client, you're changing the interface, or you may be changing the interface. So don't worry what it looks like. I'm going to be grading you on your PHP script. Good. So, please review the documentation standards for homework in this course. So let's take a look at that for a moment. All files must contain a statement of authorship, or they may receive a penalty up to and including 100% off. Here's your statement of authorship. Yes, each PHP file must contain a header which includes the PHP doc tags author, version, and package. A PHP comment block starts with 2 asterisks and ends with 1. So this this is going to seem familiar. This is the same format as JavaDoc. Each PHP doc line starts with an asterisk. Author must be followed by your name. Version must be followed by the semester date and a decimal indicating a revision. So, if it's version 1, put 1. If it's version 2, put 2, etc. This should be very, very familiar from Java last semester. Package must also, the package tag must be followed by the assessment name, that is to say, course code and assignment number. Each function must contain a header block that explains each of the inputs using param and outputs using return. Although PHP is weakly typed, you should specify the expected type of each input. For outputs, you should specify the expected values, i.e. you should give a brief description of the value. So there you go. There's a file here which gives us an example. So there you can see, there's your header. Now the header here is inside the PHP tag. And of course, the reason for that, let me just, is anybody actually watching this? Okay. The reason that this this PHP doc comment occurs inside the PHP tag is, of course, these are not comment characters from HTML, now are they? No, they are not. So, if you were to put this outside of the PHP tag, it would be interpreted as HTML, which it is not, and that would be wrong. So that's why it's inside the tag. There you go. You can see this is like our solution to the first solution to the example thing previously. Pardon me. Good. Although PHP doc has a formal specification, we are using it informally, and as such you don't have to be worried about adhering strictly to the standard. Yes. Good. So that's documentation. So in addition to the 2 PHP scripts that you will need to write for question 1 and question 2, you additionally need a new file called me.php, which outputs your name and student number. That's going to be necessary, somewhat later on. We'll be looking for it. So, question 1. mostly this is a question where you feed in a series of characters and determine various different properties of them. The degree to which, like, this is one of those types of numerical problems that you could write like a large series of if statements or a short number of things that hold variables and test various conditions. But how you choose to solve these problems is largely up to you, so long as the correct outputs are being output. So we have numbers coming in, which are 3 letters followed by 7 numbers. The three letters up front are like generally not really used in this case, but you're looking for various properties of those 7 numbers: radar, ladder, rotator, and binary. So with radar, essentially you're looking for palindromes. Right? So it must read backwards and forwards the same way. Ladder notes have a strictly increasing set of consecutive numbers. So there are only a couple of combinations to check for. That's a ladder up, and then you also have ladder down the same way. Further, if it's up then down, or down then up, then those are up-down ladders. So you'll check for those as well. Rotator note. Essentially, if you take certain numbers and you turn them upside down, they read as certain other ones, like 6 and 9. An upside down 6 is a 9, and an upside down 9 is a 6. So basically, if you take the number and rotate it 180 degrees, does it read the same way as it did before? Assuming, 1 reads as 1, 0s read as 0s, and 8s read as 8s. And finally, if all the digits are either 1 or 0, we call it a binary note. So essentially what your purpose is to read in this serial number, which is passed through a get parameter, and then return a list of all of these properties which apply to the number that was given. It is certainly possible that none of these properties will apply, right? In that case, we call it an uninteresting serial number. So really, once you've read in the string and you start manipulating it, this is fairly routine stuff. Second, let's talk about question 2. In question 2, generate rows and columns of an HTML table with 2 columns using PHP. So you have to figure out how to generate a table using PHP, which, shouldn't be too difficult if you've been paying attention in class. The number of rows is specified. Each row contains the number of digits, and that digit is repeated n times, where n is the number. On the other side, you give the sum of all of these numbers in that column. If you're paying attention, you might notice there's a very simple numerical pattern going on this side. So basically, you just generate all of these rows, right? Send the table up to the HTML through the HTTP request, and Bob's your uncle. Of the two of them, I actually consider this to be the easier of the two questions. So, submissions. you must submit your work to CS Unix so that your instructor can grade the functional performance of your work. So this assignment must be uploaded to public HTML private 10260A1. So note that this is not 10259, this is 10260. So you'll need to make a new folder for the new course and plop your assignment 1 in that directory. Your program must also be submitted on Canvas, pardon me. This establishes your timestamp for submission, and it also allows your work to be subjected to plagiarism inspection. So, good. As with client side, when you're uploading to Canvas, you need to attach the .txt file extension to your submissions. Sometimes the systems get kind of narky if you just submit raw source code. So that's part of the reason that we require that. Please note, you should leave the .php file extension in place. Your file name will end up with 2 file extensions. Please. Thank you. Good, and I think that's assignment 1. I'd ask if there are any questions, but there's only like one person watching, so there you have it. I will heart my own stream. There we go. Good. So, yesterday we were talking about modular programming in PHP. We were talking about functions, anonymous functions. Ah, yes. This is where I chose to pull the plug. So, let me just open up let me get SSH'd into CS Unix. Let's make a new PHP page, just for fun. Let's call it page 2, because we're feeling original today. There we go. Now, just to make sure things are working, CS Unix tilde more. Yes, that's the URL. 2. There we go. Hello world appears. Everything's working. Okay. So, let's talk for a moment about polymorphism. Hopefully all of you remember from Java the manner in which we would perform polymorphism. In Java, remember, we would have one method declaration using several different parameters, right? So if I had public void foo taking int a, and I had public void foo taking int a and double b, for example. This is an example of overloading, right? We can call the function foo two different ways, one with just an integer and one with an integer and a double. And right now we're not really concerned overly much what the contents of these are. In PHP, we're following the same convention that's used in Python and JavaScript, and in fact in C# as well. We can specify default values for parameters to functions. So let's make ourselves a function foo. Let's give it a, b, and c. Yep. Numlock. There we go. And let's just return the concatenation of all of these things. We'll assume they're strings. There we go. Now, if we echo foo, giving it Mario, Luigi, and the dinosaur they rode in on, if we there we go. If we give that a run, you can see we get the expected result. I'm just going to comment out the hello world. So notice that the concatenation operator is not introducing any additional spaces. So in this case, we might just want to go with something like that. That'll be easier than, a dot space dot b dot space dot c. That's just long and terrible. This is much nicer. So there we go. Now we get the spaces between. This is adaptable, though, if you want to put like breaks in between or something. But anyway, you can also do that up here. There you go. Now, so the way that JavaScript operates in this respect is different than how PHP operates. When you undersupply a function with arguments in JavaScript, JavaScript will simply insert the undefined literal anywhere it's missing arguments. So, for example, if we pull out our JavaScript console, say function foo takes a, b, and c, return a plus b plus c. There we go. And then we call foo on. Well, you can see right there, foo itself called with no arguments is not a number. But if we put like Mario in there, we get Mario undefined undefined. Right? Any arguments which are not supplied are given an undefined value as default in JavaScript. In PHP, on the other hand, If you undersupply a function with arguments, you actually throw a fatal error. It doesn't just insert undefined values for you. So, the way that we get around this is by determining default values for these parameters. You don't have to supply all of them with a default value. In this case, all we have to do is supply the last one, and everything works. Where we are only supplying 2 arguments, the third one has a default value, so it uses that instead. If we use a default value here on B, let's say Bowser. In this case, we still get Luigi popping up because that's a supplied argument that overrides the default value. So that's how you do that in PHP. If on the so let's say, for example, we wanted Luigi to be mapped to the C argument. Well, there's got to be a way to do that. Give me a moment. Just forgetting the... this only works in PHP 8. Okay. Haha. Named argument syntax. So, okay. So this works in PHP 8, but because the server is running PHP 7, it doesn't work, so just don't use it. So there you go. Learn something new every day. Good. So, let's talk about object-oriented programming then. So, PHP did not originally support object-oriented programming. It was added to PHP in version 5. Before that, it was a purely imperative language. We won't be requiring you to create your own classes very much in this course. You're welcome to do so if you'd like, but we're going to focus more on the use of existing objects rather than writing our own. This is not intended to be a course on object-oriented programming. But here is your syntax for the declaration of a class. In general, this follows Python's style pretty closely. So, let's define ourselves a class. Let's person. How about Candy? grams sugar, private flavor. There we go. Constructors in PHP, you take a special name, construct, which must be prepended with 2 underscores. This should already be feeling very Python to anybody who knows how this works in Python. Public function construct takes flavor and we'll just, keep it like that. This arrow name grams sugar is equal to 100. That's actually a lot of sugar. Let's say 20. 100 grams of sugar is like 1/10 of a kilogram of sugar. That would be a very sugary candy. This arrow flavor is equal to flavor. So you may remember from Java that in order to avoid ambiguity between the argument names of a function and the fields of a function, we would use this dot. We're essentially using the same thing here in PHP, except it's required. You'll see even in functions where there is no namespace conflict, this arrow is still used. Etc., etc. So, another key syntactic difference that you will note is the means by which we access members. So, in Java and in JavaScript and in Python and in most languages, we use dot syntax for this. But in PHP, the dot has been mapped already to strings, to string concatenation. So in PHP, we're following a somewhat older style that's derived from C programming, actually, which is field access combined with variable pointer variable dereferencing. That's the technical origin of this. But anyway, you're using arrows instead of dots. They serve the same purpose. So, the way that you create an object of this class that you've just written, let's say Turkish Delight is a new candy. Flavor rose. If you take a look at like authentic Turkish Delight is delicious, and rose is actually a flavor that it comes in. It's very cool. Because for me and my uneducated Canadian palate, you think of rose. You don't really think of rose as being a flavor. It's like a perfume, but not like a flavor for eating. But then again, you try it and it's delicious. So there you go. The way that we access. Let me just. That's the second time my phone's gone off. What's the matter? Is somebody dying? No, nobody is dying. Okay. Alright. Nobody's dying. That's all good. The way that we access methods from objects is the same. We just, instead of using dot notation, we're using arrow notation. So, if we run this, oh, expecting a, oh, yeah. Oh. Public function. There we go. And there you see it. There you have it. Good. And just as a final thing, let's say you wanted to integrate this into a string. You can actually do that in situ. You just need to put your method call inside of curly braces. There you go. Wonderful. I would ask if there were any questions, but nobody's really watching this. So, yeah. Pardon me. So, I now have some non-programming stuff to talk to you about. We're going to talk about the Model View Controller Design Pattern, or MVC architecture. MVC architecture is of increasing importance in web application design. When you guys start doing, I believe it's Advanced PHP is the course name, the course in which you'll be doing the Laravel framework. Model View Controller is the architecture that framework uses, and a lot of back-end frameworks will be using this or similar. So, yes. Basically, you've got three main components to the Model View Controller architecture. Model, view, and controller. The idea is that the controller is actually the first thing that gets hit with an incoming request. The purpose of the controller is to intermediate between the model, the view, and the client, right? So it receives the incoming request, decides what needs to be done to process the incoming request, and then calls elements of the APIs of either the model or the view partitions. The model is responsible for the data and business logic. If there is a database that's being accessed at all, this is being accessed by the model. You're also putting any consistency or security checks that you need to check inside of the model. Maintaining information about the client's interaction, that's done by the model as well. The view is responsible for presenting the data to the user interface. So inserting data into a web page and then queuing that web page up for being sent out. That sort of thing. The view is kept separate from the application's business logic to ensure a clear distinction between presentation and data processing. Rebranding or redesign of the visual appearance of a website can occur with changes only to the view. So the idea is the view, like if you need something changed about the website, you don't have to modify the model, right? And you don't have to modify the controller. It sort of limits the extent of the changes that need to be made. Thanks to the use of Ajax and JavaScript and frameworks like React, Angular, Vue, etc., it is possible for the view to be almost entirely defined by the client-side code. The server side would still have responsibility to provide data that the view requires. So, yeah, I have a slideshow here. A very quick. I have a very quick thing here. I'd like to show you. So, let's see here. Yes. So, the model, the controller, and the view. Model is interacting with the database. View uses fetched data and HTML, CSS templates to create populated views sent to the client, and the controller routes requests. So, let us simulate the data flow for requesting a dank meme. The client sends an HTTP request to the server, which is received by the controller. So basically in this diagram, the client is up here, everything else is server, and this arrow is like the internet. So, client sends request to controller. The controller passes the request to the model since data is being requested. The model accesses the database to retrieve the requested data, and then passes the retrieved data back up to the controller. The controller sends the requested data to the view, as well as which web page the data should be viewed in. The view uses templates to construct HTML and CSS, etc., in order to send it to the client. Now, this part here will often mean we are running some PHP scripts to take some received data, integrate that into HTML and CSS, and then we send the HTML, CSS to the client. So the processing that we've done so far, the PHP programming we've done so far, has really been view focused, right? Because we're trying to integrate data into the website. Once we start, because we haven't really done anything spectacular yet in terms of programming. Once you have done your question 1 and 2 on assignment 1, those involve a little bit more logic and calculation, so those would be perhaps a bit more appropriately classified as model. But really, things aren't complicated enough yet with the programs we've been writing to have to worry about this type of architecture. But anyway, once the view has the website, it sends it back through the controller and from the controller to the client, and the client receives the dank meme. MVC architecture allows the encapsulation of these tasks. The larger the organization or website, the more vital modularization becomes. No component should perform a task belonging to another component. That's modularization. And all communication between components should be API-based. So there should be a fixed, defined interface between controller and model, model and database, and controller and view. So there you have it. Wonderful. By separating an application into these three components, MVC promotes a structured and organized approach to web development. It enhances code modularity, making it easier to manage and update each component independently. Additionally, MVC allows developers to focus on specific aspects of the application, leading to more efficient development and maintenance processes. This pattern is widely used in a variety of web frameworks and programming languages to build scalable and maintainable web applications. So there you go. Model View Controller. You will hear a lot more of that as this degree program goes on. So, yeah. Let's go through the quick reference quickly. So the PHP quick reference sheet, it's designed to be like a handy, quick desktop reference that you can use while you're programming to check what the syntax is for various things you're trying to do. So there are a couple of nice little tidbits in here, though. So remember that PHP must occur inside of PHP tags. This, if you have an equal sign here, that's the expression tag, and it basically just output, it automatically calls echo. With output, you have echo, print, and printf. Echo is an expression, print is a construct, and printf is a function. Let's see what print does. How it behaves. Yep, seems to work fine. Variables are, of course, always prepended with the $sign. They're dynamically typed. No declaration is necessary. Variables are scoped to global or to the function. So there's no block level scoping in PHP, which is fine because it's kind of a pain in the butt in Java. So what that means is if you have a loop and you define a variable inside that loop, it still exists outside that loop. If, else, while, do, for, and switch all work the same as Java. PHP has a special else-if keyword similar to Python's elifs, and code blocks use curly braces. Yes. Ah, here we go. Something we haven't talked about yet. Arrays. So you're using square braces for arrays here. So let's do some arrays quickly. A is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. While I is less than 4 or less than 5, I is equal to 0. Echo echo a at I, then put a space in there, and don't forget to increment. Please, 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 please don't write infinite loops that run on the server. Thank you. Nope, parse error. Line 40. missing a semicolon. That'll get you every time. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Arrays in PHP work pretty much the same way as they do in Java, so you don't have to worry too much about that. We also have a number of useful and interesting global functions. Some of these might be very useful for you for certain upcoming assignments. Count returns the length of an array. String length returns the length of a string. Array push adds an item to an array. So unlike in Java, arrays are not statically sized, so you can add additional elements to an array on the fly. That's fine. Rand gives you a random number between two other numbers. Date returns the date times string with a format string provided. Var dump prints type and contents of a particular var. So this would be useful for sussing out what PHP thinks the data type should be for any of these. PHP version gives you the version of PHP, obviously. Number format is a rounding function. And then mail sends an email, but only if the email server is configured. So you can actually send emails to people using PHP, which is kind of cool. There you have it. So, there we go. I realize that we had scheduled 2 hours for this, but because I'm through all of this material, next week we'll be starting up at the week 4 material like we're supposed to be. And so we are 100% officially caught up. Thank you very much for bearing with me through all of this. Yeah, nothing more to say. All right, I'll see you all in class.